Have you ever sat and watched somebody listen to a long, complicated speech and then repeat it back, almost perfectly, in a completely different language? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on that incredible mental feat. We're talking about the secret code of professional interpreters. You've seen it, right? Maybe at a big conference or some high-stakes political meeting. A speaker will talk for 5, maybe even 10 minutes straight, and then the interpreter steps up and just relays the entire thing, flawlessly. It honestly seems impossible. How in the world do they remember all of that? Now, the first thing everybody thinks is, wow, they must have a photographic memory. But nope, that's not it at all. In fact, if you try to rely on just your memory, you'd be setting yourself up for a total disaster. The truth is so much cooler. They use this highly personal, incredibly fast system of note-taking. You could call it a secret code. And it's a code that's not designed to capture words, but to trigger ideas. And today, we're going to crack it. But first, to really get why this code is so brilliant, you have to appreciate the problem it's trying to solve. Because what these interpreters do is, on paper, pretty much impossible. So just to be super clear, we're talking about consecutive interpretation. That's where the speaker talks for a bit, then pauses. We're not talking about that real-time, in-your-earpiece kind you see at the UN. This kind puts this unbelievable strain on your short-term memory, which is exactly why this whole note-taking system is so important. Okay, so let's break down the challenge. First off, the average person speaks at about 150 words a minute. Think about that. That's a fire hose of information coming at you, filled with nuance, data, and really complex ideas that you have to catch. Now, compare that to how fast the average person can write, which is only about 20 words per minute, maybe 30 if you're really flying. I mean, the gap is just massive. You physically cannot write down what you're hearing. If you try to write it all down, you'll fall behind immediately, you'll stop actually listening, and the whole thing just falls apart. So, what's the answer? If you can't write it all down, and you can't just remember it, what do? Well, you change the rules of the game completely. And this is where we get to the code itself. The big mind shift is this. Your goal is not to write down the speech. It's to create a map that will trigger your memory of the speech. It's a total flip in perspective. Here's the perfect way to think about it. Your notepad is like a GPS. It gives you the key turns, the signposts, the don't miss this moments, but you're still the one driving the car. Your brain is doing the real work of understanding the message. The notes are just making sure you don't get lost. So what is this system really? Well, it's a mix of symbols, a very specific way of laying things out on the page, and some seriously aggressive abbreviations. But the most important part is right there. It's all designed to capture ideas. Not words, not sentences, the pure meaning behind them. And this really gets to the heart of it. You are not writing a script that you're going to read back later. You're just jotting down these little dots, these key ideas that your brain can then connect. And what's so genius about this is, by not trying to write everything, you free up a huge amount of mental bandwidth to do the most important job. Actively listen, understand, and analyze what's being said. Okay, so how does this actually work in the real world? The whole philosophy really boils down to 3 simple but super powerful rules. Let's dive into the first one. So this is the big one, and it sounds completely backwards, but here it is. The less you write, the better your interpretation will be. Think about it. Every single second your pen is touching that paper is a second you might be missing the speaker's tone or key piece of information. So how do you actually write less? Well, they're ruthless about it. Vowels, gone. Your brain can fill those in. Common words get abbreviated down to nothing. Spelling, totally irrelevant. The only thing that matters is capturing those few key words that will spark the memory of the whole idea. All right, rule number 2. This isn't just about what you're writing, it's about where you write it on the page. Your notes have to be scannable in like a split second. You can't be sitting there hunting for a fact while an entire room is staring at you. Okay, now this is where it gets really fascinating. Interpreters don't write from left to right like we do. They use what's called a diagonal cascade, moving down the page. This creates a visual flow, and they reserve the left margin for all the connecting words. Words like but, so, because. That way they can see the entire logical structure of the speech with just one glance. It's literally a map of the argument. It's genius. All right, enough with the theory. It's cool, but let's see what this actually looks like. We're going to take a real sentence and decode it. Take a look at this sentence. It is
dense. You've got names, you've got platforms, specific actions, timelines. Trying to write this down word for word, you'd fail before you got halfway through. So what does the interpreter actually write down?
And there it is. That's the magic right there. A 35-word sentence gets boiled down to just a few little marks. OK, FRMT is agreed upon format. V plus GC to SPPT is clearly videos and Google Classroom support. Even a single letter, like the Q here, can be a personal symbol that means every. Now to us, it looks like gibberish. But to the interpreter, it's a perfect, high-speed roadmap right back to the original idea. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most creative part of this whole thing. Once you get good at the abbreviations and the layout, you start to develop your own personal language of symbols. Let's see how that works. Let's say you need a symbol for the idea of a reminder. You might start with that classic image, a string tied around a finger. But that's way too slow to draw, so you simplify it. Then you simplify it again. You keep abstracting it until you're left with the absolute fewest strokes that, for you, instantly bring back that idea of reminder. And that is the absolute core of it all. The symbol doesn't have to be a masterpiece. It doesn't even have to look like the original thing. What matters is the mental journey you took to create it. That's what forges the link in your brain between that simple little squiggle and the complex idea it represents. It's personal, and that's why it's so powerful.
So, this leaves us with a pretty cool thought. This isn't just some trick for interpreters. It's a powerful tool for thinking for any of us. So, what's a complex, important idea in your own life? A project at work, a personal goal, a core value? What's something that you could boil down into one simple, personal symbol? Something that could cut through all the noise and get you right back to what matters. What would your secret code look like?